What do you do with the mad that you feel? When you feel so mad you could bite. When the whole wide world seems oh so wrong, and nothing you do seems very right.
It was 1969, when the United States Senate was about to slash funding for public television. A young Presbyterian minister sat before Congress. He wasn't a politician. He wasn't a lobbyist. He was Mr. Rogers. Facing down hardened senators, Mr. Rogers didn't argue about data. Instead, he quietly recited words from the children's song, "What do you do with the mad that you feel?" By the time he finished, the chairman, Senator John Pastore, was visibly moved.
Looks like you just earned the $20 million.
And with that, Mr. Rogers saved public television. But that moment wasn't about funding. It was about what Rogers represented, a belief that children's emotions, their voices, and struggles mattered. To understand how it was possible for one man to shift the cultural compass of an entire country, we need to look at the boundaries that Fred Rogers pushed. The boundaries on race, on class, on empathy itself, and the subsequent ripple effects that reshaped American society. The first of which appeared right inside Mr. Rogers' neighborhood. The same year Mr. Rogers testified in Congress, public swimming pools were becoming battlegrounds of integration all across America. In some cases, people poured acid into public pools to drive out black swimmers. So when Mr. Rogers invited Officer Clements, one of the first recurring black characters on children's television, to join him on screen for the first time, the two men sat together with their bare feet in a small swimming pool. The two of them talked, laughed, and cooled their feet in the water. Without saying it outright, Rogers delivered a striking message to millions of families watching at home. The message that black and white people could share the same space, the same humanity. This wasn't a one-off stunt. Officer Clemens remained a fixture on the show for decades, symbolizing inclusion at a time when mainstream media often excluded black voices altogether. Mr. Rogers' challenge to racism didn't stop at the swimming pool. It extended into his insistence that every child, regardless of color, was worthy of care and respect. While many TV hosts of the era dodged difficult conversations, Mr. Rogers leaned into them, and the conversation around race was only the beginning. Fred Rogers came from a middle-class background, but he never dismissed the realities of working-class struggle. In episode after episode, he tackled themes of scarcity, fairness, and dignity, and did it in ways that children could understand. Instead of pretending that money wasn't an issue, Rogers showed kids that adults sometimes worry about jobs, bills, or not having enough. He humanized economic insecurity and did it without shaming those experiencing it. When factories in Pittsburgh, his hometown, began closing in the late 70s and early 80s, Mr. Rogers filmed segments to show children what their parents and neighbors did for a living. It wasn't spectacle, it was respect. He turned invisible labor into something seen and valued. This message landed in living rooms across America, but especially in struggling communities where parents were balancing job loss with raising children. Rogers wasn't just entertaining kids, he was arming them with empathy. This empathy would stretch beyond class and economics and into spaces many considered taboo for children's television, like disability and illness, topics that most tried to hide from children's view. In 1981, Rogers invited a 10-year-old boy named Jeff Erlanger onto the show. Jeff was in a wheelchair due to a spinal tumor. Instead of turning the moment into inspiration theater, Rogers let Jeff explain, in his own words, why he used the chair, what it meant for his life, and what helped him cope with the difficulties of living with his disability. And then together, the two of them sang, "It's You I Like."
But it's you I like. every part of
you. Your skin, your eyes, your feelings, whether old or new.
Millions of children watching learned that disability wasn't something to fear, pity, or ignore. It was simply one of the many parts of being human. Rogers returned to this theme often, helping kids process grief, showing them medical procedures, and teaching them to put themselves in other people's shoes. Each choice carried the same message: knowledge and compassion will dissolve fear. And if children could be taught to face difference with kindness, maybe the adults could too. This philosophy became even clearer by how Rogers approached the most universal challenge of all: dealing with our emotions. Before Rogers, most children's television revolved around slapstick gags and toy tie-ins, not emotional literacy. Rogers flipped that script. He told children it was normal to feel angry, sad, or scared, and that talking about these feelings will make them less overwhelming. In one famous segment after the assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, Rogers addressed children directly about what the word assassination meant, helping them process what they saw their parents watching on the news. Unlike the rest of the children's programming at the time, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood wasn't about shielding kids from the real world. It was about preparing them to live in it. Rogers knew that unacknowledged feelings often turn into violence and despair. And by teaching kids to name emotions, he was quietly teaching them self-control and empathy. And that skill, the ability to regulate emotion, was what Rogers was defending so passionately in front of Congress. His argument was always the same. Children deserved content that didn't manipulate them, that didn't sell to them, that didn't treat them as afterthoughts. In an era when children's TV was dominated by flashy commercials for sugary cereals and cheap plastic toys, Fred Rogers' insistence on commercial-free programming was radical. But he believed kids should never be seen as consumers. They should be seen as citizens in training. And lawmakers listened. In large part, because of Rogers, PBS survived and grew, and was able to fund shows like Sesame Street, Reading Rainbow, and of course, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. That public media infrastructure went on to educate generations of children who might otherwise have been left behind by private television markets. Rogers' advocacy wasn't just about TV, though. It was about the very definition of community in America. Rogers constantly reinforced one radical idea: I like you just the way you are. It sounds simple, but in a society shaped by advertising, racism, and class division, unconditional acceptance was a rarity. He challenged the myth that worth is earned through achievement, wealth, or appearance. In his neighborhood, worth was inherent. That ethic bled into his personal life too. Rogers quietly supported causes related to children's welfare, education, and access to health care. He used his platform not to build personal wealth, but to expand the circle of who was seen, heard, and valued. And while his delivery was soft, the implications were loud. He was saying America didn't just need smarter kids, it needed kinder ones. Fred Rogers never shouted. He never ranted. He never sought power. Yet his impact rippled through living rooms, classrooms, and even Congress. He broke racial taboos with a pool of water. He honored working-class struggle in a city losing its livelihood. He gave children tools to face loss, anger, and fear. He fought for public media at a time when no one else could. And he did it all with a simple belief that every child and every neighbor mattered. In a time when culture often rewarded noise and conflict, Mr. Rogers built a legacy on silence and care. And maybe that's the greatest lesson, that real change doesn't always come from the people that make the most noise. Sometimes It comes from the people that choose to listen. In today's world, it seems like no one in a position of power or influence is willing to actually listen. They choose to be the loudest in the room, trying to write a narrative that the public has to consume. Maybe what we need, though, is a calm, rational voice helping us, teaching us, and showing us what we should do with the mad that we feel. Thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please subscribe and leave a like. If you didn't, subscribe and leave me a comment.
It's a beautiful day in this neighborhood, a beautiful day.